This is a movie about a secret agent Lance Sterling, who is transformed into a pigeon by a brilliant young scientist Walter Beckett, and how they fight a criminal scientist while figuring out a way to return the secret agent to his human form. The movie begins with someone trying to defuse a time bomb with only a minute at their disposal. As the seconds flow by, the unknown person cuts a wire after some speculation, but it turns out to be the wrong one, which only results in hastening the countdown. When the time runs out, it causes a mini explosion in the lounge of Walter Beckett, a young enthusiastic science-loving geek who is working on his scientific experiment. Just then, his mom, Wendy Beckett, a police officer, enters the living room looking for her tweezer, and the propelling gadget causes her mug to break, spilling all the morning coffee. Disposing of it, she inquires what Walter is up to on a school morning, to which he responds that he is crafting a new gadget for his mother to keep her safe in her demanding line of work. The gadget can be worn on the wrist and has 3 buttons installed. One button unleashes a loud noise to incapacitate the opponents, the second one can wrap Wendy in an inflatable hug, and the last one, to be used in dire circumstances when Wendy is outnumbered, will erupt a shower of glitter that will distract the opponents, as per Walter's innocent imagination, since glitter makes everyone happy. Just when his mother notices he has used her old cell phone in his experiment, he activates the glitter cloud, which instantly calms her down, and she looks lovingly at her concerned kid. Suddenly, her walkie-talkie static reminds her of work, so she kisses him goodbye, asking Walter to be nice to his grandmother. Walter offers to join her at work, claiming he will be able to finish his safety gadget on the way. His mother reminds him that he needs to get ready for his school, and when she notices Walter's obvious hesitation, she stops in her tracks and comforts her little kid. As it happens, Walter is not enthusiastic about going to school since the kids at school think he is weird. His mother encourages him for being his original self and tells him that one day his amazing inventions and ideas will be used to make the world a better place. Promising to always have his back, his mother embraces him in a warm hug amidst a glitter flurry. Next, 14 long years pass by and we see Iwate Prefecture in snow-covered Japan, where a multi-towered pagoda is being guarded by armed men amidst the snowfall. Suddenly a secret agent Lance Sterling from HTUV, Honor, Trust, Unity, and Valor, makes his appearance on the balcony, and he walks the guards through his plan to subdue them. Before the guards can do him any harm, he defeats them with his expert agility and activates a few drones to have a visual on the most sought-after criminal, Katsu Kimura, who is a renowned arms dealer. Stealing is informed by the HTUV director Joy Jenkins about his mission, which is to retrieve the briefcase displayed on Katsu Kimura's table, which harbors a state-of-the-art assassin drone. This drone was stolen from the covert weapons facility by Kimura's men. Just then, Jenkins alerts Sterling of about 70 Yakuza men heading his way and orders him to lay low till backup arrives. But being the bold agent he is, Sterling defies her orders because he is too full of himself and thinks he can accomplish anything, without any help. Cutting off his communication with the headquarters, Sterling proceeds to enter the pagoda, where he initially camouflages himself in the aquarium, to get a better understanding of what is going on at Kimura's den. The Yakuza are drinking and playing board games, which makes Sterling think that this mission will be a piece of cake. Suddenly, a helicopter arrives and Killian, a cybernetically enhanced terrorist, arrives. He walks straight up to Kimura and it appears like he is the buyer of the assassin drone. This is where Sterling decides to introduce himself, and with his gadgets, he causes the massive aquarium to crash, flooding and subduing most of Kimura's men. Being an excellent spy, he even manages to knock out Kimura. However, when Sterling tries to take on Killian, who already has the briefcase in his custody, he is astounded to find Killian's strengths. Killian lifts him off his feet with his bionic arm, prompting him to remember him from an old pursuit, but it does not jog Sterling's memory. Sterling manages to throw Killian off by attacking him with an electric eel, which flings the briefcase out of his hand. Suddenly, all the Yakuza men Jenkins had earlier warned Sterling about show up, and this gives Killian the window to escape with the briefcase. Sterling launches his explosive gadget but is taken aback when it produces a bomb of glitter along with a kitten hologram. It serves the purpose of distracting the Yakuza, so Sterling manages to escape them. Using the huge dong he has let loose, Sterling manages to propel himself through the roof in a parabola projection that helps him recover the briefcase from Killian's helicopter in the sky, and he manages to escape. Next, we see people going on with their lives as the sun shines brightly on Washington, D.C. The camera heads down Lincoln's Memorial reflecting pool by the Washington, D.C. monument, which reveals the underground headquarters of HTUV, where everyone cheers on the arrival of Sterling yielding that briefcase. As it turns out, he is quite the celebrity and most of the staff is starstruck by his presence. He climbs the elevator to get to the floor where scientists come up with eclectic gadgets to aid the spies in their missions. Sterling is still furious that his gadgets had been tampered with, and instead of blowing people up, they emitted glitter and kitty holograms. The scientists lead him up to Walter Beckett, an MIT graduate, but due to his awkwardness, he is an outcast scientist at the HTUV. Sterling confronts him about messing with his stuff, since he needs lethal equipment to perform his duties efficiently, instead of the glittery kitten hologram bombs. Walter tries to convince Sterling that there are ways other than violence to make the world a better place, but Sterling shrugs off the theory. Walter demonstrates an inflatable self-protection device he is working on to prove his point, but it backfires and Sterling leaves his nook, telling him he is fired because he cannot have grenades launching kitty glitter to win against his opponents every single time. Walter does not take no for an answer and follows Sterling into the elevator in an effort to convince him to collaborate, since once his ideas are endorsed by the world's most famous spy, people will actually start to notice Walter, who is normally treated as a weirdo and an outcast. Sterling accidentally stuns Walter with one of his own creations, but that does not stop Walter from pitching his latest work that he proudly calls biodynamic concealment. It can make the user invisible, rendering all the gadgets unnecessary and granting ease of carrying out the mission. Sterling leaves the flaccid Walter and heads to the main office, where he hands over the briefcase to Jenkins and brags about the mission. His elation is cut short when the top-ranking officers and Jenkins demand an explanation for the missing assassin drone. Much to Sterling's shock, the briefcase is empty. Just then, Marcy Capel, an internal affairs agent, enters the room with her team and blames Sterling for stealing the drone himself. Jenkins rushes to his defense as Sterling is the top-ranking spy and she trusts him. This is when Agent Marcy's team runs the video where a guy that appears to look like Sterling single-handedly stole the assassin's drone. Figuring out it must be Killian posing as Sterling himself, Sterling claims this is all a big misunderstanding and the buyer from his mission is the guy they actually need to go after. However, Marcy rejects his theory since no one has ever seen the guy with the robot arm. Marcy paints this as a makeshift story that Sterling just cooked up to get out of the situation. She puts on handcuffs on him in a tussle, but Sterling, being the elusive spy he is, manages to escape the room and run away. When he gets to the main hallway, he tries to maintain his composure as the hero he is deemed to be, but when Agent Marcy's team starts chasing him, he rushes through the crowd and dashes for the elevator, managing to hold back Agent Marcy with the security walls. Sterling manages to run away from the authorities and hides under a tunnel while trying to figure out how to prove his innocence. He remembers Katsu Kimura as another witness to Killian's existence, but when his computer locates him to be in Mexico, Sterling knows it is a long shot. Figuring he needs to disappear, suddenly Walter from the lab crosses his mind and he heads out to meet him at his location. Next, we see Killian transformed as Sterling in his plane with the assassin drone flying by his side, and with an evil smirk on his face, Killian heads to the covert weapons facility of HTUV in the North Sea. He enters disguised as Sterling and eliminates the entry guards. Meanwhile, we see a disappointed Walter at his house, who has brought along his office belongings as Sterling fired him. On the display, we see his mom's photo, who had passed away while performing her duty, becoming a hero but leaving a yearning in Walter's heart to eliminate violence so no innocent lives are lost. While he eats Chinese takeout watching a K-pop show, his recent batch of biodynamic concealment catches his attention and he borrows a feather from his roommate Lovey to experiment on it. To his amusement, the experiment is a success as the feather vanishes completely. Just as he is rejoicing in his success, the sudden appearance of Agent Sterling baffles him, catching him off guard. However, Walter instantly regains his composure and is delighted to learn that the great spy Lance Sterling is actually looking forward to his invention. He asks Sterling if he'd like a drink, and since Sterling has no time to waste, he drinks from the glass beaker in Walter's hand. Noticing the weird aftertaste, he demands an explanation, so Walter enlightens him that he just ingested his experiment, and within 45 seconds, he will transform into a pigeon. Sterling decides to head out, convinced this was a crazy idea, but suddenly he starts feeling discomfort, as his genetic makeup is being modified by merging into pigeon DNA. He tries to power through it, but eventually passes out, while Walter explains to him all the phases of transformation he will go through. Walter even floods him with serotonin to mask the unbearable pain of the transformation. Next, Sterling finally wakes up as a blue pigeon. Walter tries to record his vitals, but seeing Sterling is disoriented, he tries to comfort him. Sterling is having a hard time coming to terms with his 360-degree vision, which hampers his walk. He loses his temper and blames Walter for turning him into a bird, and demands immediate retransformation into his human form so he can stop Killian and clear his name. Walter informs him that he does not have any antidote yet, as his work was just in the trial and error phase, and since Sterling drank the formula himself, it is not Walter's fault that he turned into a pigeon. When he tells Sterling that he has informed the agency of his presence here, Sterling rushes to get away. He is relieved that Walter did not disclose his pigeon identity to the agency. All this time, he is being harried by Lovey, who seems smitten by him. Sterling tries to fly to his car but ends up hurting himself. After umpteen failed attempts at trying to get inside his car, Sterling finally gives up and allows Walter to help him, seeing him as his only chance at becoming his human form again. Walter and Sterling struggle to get in the car, while the agency arrives with all forces as they raid Walter's house, ordering Sterling to step out. Sterling activates auto drive and his car swooshes down the road, alerting Agent Marcy of his escape. She follows suit and charges behind Sterling's car, knowing Sterling is using Walter for some means. Meanwhile, Sterling is not impressed that Walter brought along Lovey as his emotional support animal. When the car swerves out of danger after Agent Marcy's instructions to slow him down, Sterling activates the weapons to get rid of them, but Walter immediately deactivates them, since he cannot let Sterling shoot the good guys. Agent Marcy and her team are confused as Sterling's car keeps activating and deactivating the weapons, which ultimately results in the shutting down of the computer system. Sterling tries to manage the steering wheel while Walter brings the computer system back on, and despite swerving through traffic, they manage to escape without crashing. Agent Marcy has had enough and she chases them into an alley that is already blocked by the forces to ensure Sterling cannot get away this time. However, Walter activates the oil slick option without realizing they were driving backward, and it sets fire to the barricade, enabling their escape yet once again. Sterling orders his computer to take them to the airstrip while a defeated Agent Marcy wonders if she saw a pigeon in the car. Next, as they all head to Mexico to meet Kimura, we see Walter brimming with anticipation as he is finally going to work on all his dream projects once he is reinstated at the agency. Suddenly, a shocked Sterling comes out of the airplane lavatory, obviously disgruntled with his new pigeon anatomy. Walter tries to coax Sterling into accepting himself as a pigeon and starts bombarding him with cool facts, which makes Sterling wish he could simply push the eject button and get rid of Walter once and for all, but he needs him since Walter's retransformation antidote needs around 18 hours to be complete. They finally land in Mexico and make their way to Playa del Carmen. At the entrance, Sterling recognizes the Yakuza he beat up back in Japan. Just as he is about to confront them, Walter reminds him that he is now a pigeon so he can walk right past them and they won't notice who he is. The plan works, even though Sterling caws loudly, not the sound a pigeon makes, but it does not bother the Yakuza. Just as Sterling is planning to steal a room key from the reception, Walter butts in and suggests they brainstorm some ideas to get to Kimura. Telling him no, Sterling makes his way toward the reception but his avian instinct takes over and he finds himself pecking like a real pigeon at the food on the floor. As disgusted as he is by himself, he finds the food delightful. Two other pigeons join him along with Lovey. They instantly take to him, but since Sterling is habitual in carrying out his mission single-handedly, he tries to break loose from the flock. Walter is fascinated when he realizes Sterling can communicate with one of the pigeons, Jeff. Sterling heads to the reception desk where he searches for Kimura's alias in the computer when the receptionist is distracted, and just as he is about to grab the key, he is joined by those two pigeons and they end up catching the attention of the receptionist, who uses the keyboard to squish Sterling and dumps him into the garbage. When he finds his way out of the garbage bag, it turns out his new pigeon buddies had procured the room key for him. Vowing that he does not need anyone's help from this point on, Sterling enters the glass elevator and goes to pay Kimura a visit, with the help of Walter pressing the button in the elevator. He catches Kimura off guard in his pool and leads him into believing that it will cause him major trouble if he does not reveal the identity and whereabouts of Killian. However, Sterling gets distracted upon the arrival of his fellow pigeons, which causes Kimura to learn that Sterling is a mere pigeon. Despite implying his once lethal moves, the feathers do not leave as much as a scratch on Kimura. Assuming it as his end, Sterling shuts his eye in dismay as Kimura is about to squish him, but suddenly Walter comes to the rescue and uses his gadget from earlier to turn Kimura into a limp mass with no bones. Sterling is thrilled to be alive, but his joy is cut short when he notices that the security agents from Internal Affairs led by Agent Marcy have arrived at the resort and are headed in their direction. Walter uses his truth serum to make Kimura reveal the whereabouts of Killian, who plans on killing all the secret agents with the assassin drone and currently is working on figuring out their identities by stealing the agent database in Venice, Italy. They prop Kimura at the entrance and try to escape from the balcony, which results in a ridiculous cat-and-mouse chase all around the resort between Sterling and Walter, and the security agents. When Walter and Sterling are cornered from all sides, one of the pigeons swallows the pen gadget and ends up mass-producing the superstring from the pen, defeating the security agents. This gives time to Sterling and Walter to escape to Venice in pursuit of Killian. Agent Marcy is convinced this is not the work of Sterling since no one is getting hurt, and that is not Sterling's signature style. Her team informs her about Walter's genius and she knows she has to get to him to stop Sterling. Meanwhile, at the covert weapons facility in the North Sea, a scientist fumbles through the entire database to gain access to what Killian is after. When he is done, Killian eliminates the poor scientist with the drone that he is controlling with his bionic arm. As it happens, Killian's teammates were all eliminated in an operation led by Sterling. This fueled unmatched animosity in his heart, and hence Killian set out to eliminate all the agents to settle the score. Next, Sterling and the team are seen traversing the waters on their way to Venice. Walter's antidote is ready, but when he experiments with Sterling's feather, it does not work. Sterling is desperate for a cure because he needs to stop Killian from killing innocent people. Walter believes violence is not the answer, and despite his severe motion sickness, he is accompanying Sterling on the ship because he wants to make the world a better place. They reach Venice and Walter tells Sterling his wish of feeding all the pigeons of Venice. Just as they reach the dock, Agent Marcy and her team ambush Walter, urging him to reveal Sterling's location. Since they are oblivious to the fact that Sterling is a pigeon, Sterling plays his part to the dot. Agent Marcy tries to convince Walter to join her side. This is when Sterling learns of Walter's mother, who died a hero in her line of duty, and hence understands why Walter is against weapons and violence. However, Walter refuses, which results in Agent Marcy handcuffing him. Just then, the agency data vault behind them blows up, and the entire team rushes in. Sterling uncuffs Walter and they proceed inside the building to find the assassin drone stealing the database. The agents try to stop it, but it ends up trapping them and gets away. Walter and Sterling follow it, and once they see it is flying away, Walter plunges Sterling into the air so he can fly and recover the database. Just when Sterling is about to crash into the floor, he is saved by Lovey and the other pigeons. They track down the assassin's drone while Walter follows them on foot. Sterling manages to recover the database from the assassin drone and Walter ends up catching it. As they revel in the success of teamwork, suddenly Walter is smacked by the bionic arm of Killian, who finally makes his appearance. He crushes Walter under his foot, and just when he is about to harm him with his tech arm, Walter sprinkles breadcrumbs over Killian, prompting all the pigeons to come aiming for him. This gives Walter and Sterling the window to escape. Agent Marcy approaches Killian, who instantly transforms into Sterling, but when he escapes with the help of his drone, Agent Marcy notices the bionic arm, which shakes her suspicion of Sterling. Next, when Sterling is upset about losing the database, Walter reveals that he put a tracker on Killian during their encounter. This prompts Sterling into believing in the power of teamwork, and he ends up laying an egg. Walter figures out he is a girl pigeon and hence is able to concoct the required antidote, which finally returns Sterling back to his human form. Following Killian's location, they reach the covert weapons facility, but Sterling resorts to his old ways of working solo, and sends a very reluctant Walter back home, in fear of losing him. Sterling then heads to the facility, which has been wrecked by Killian. Passing carefully through the surveillance drone, Sterling manages to creep up on Killian, destroying his drone. Killian merely shrugs it off, since he has prepared 1,000 more drones to take out all the agents. One of the drones stuns Sterling, who falls crashing to the ground. When he comes to his senses, Sterling finds himself locked in a chair, and this is where Killian reminds him of one of his missions, where innocent lives were lost due to his mindless weapons. Killian watched his entire people die in front of his eyes, and this is why he is exacting revenge on Sterling. With this, he releases the drones to head out for their targets. Suddenly, the radar alerts them of Walter's underground ship. Sterling figures out that he is headed here to save him. He begs Killian to let the kid go since he has nothing to do with what happened back then, but since Killian is out of revenge, he orders 2 drones to take out Walter, and soon, a huge explosion is seen, which depicts that Walter's ship has been destroyed. Sterling is wallowing in grief when suddenly he notices his pigeon team and Walter. As it happens, Walter used his inflatable hug gadget to get away unscathed. Sterling suggests Walter lead them this time around, and he connects with Agent Marcy for backup after freeing Sterling. Walter needs to hack into Killian's tech arm to deactivate the drone sent to the HTUV headquarters, so Sterling, Marcy, and her team along with the pigeons employ all of Walter's weird non-violent gadgets to buy time. When Killian realizes their plan, he tries to escape using a drone, but Walter catches him. When the hacking is complete, he deactivates the drones that are just about to eliminate the agents at the headquarters. Walter traps Killian in the inflatable hug and begins to fall toward the ground. However, he is saved by Sterling, who has turned himself into a pigeon and flies for the first time to rescue Walter, landing him to safety with the help of other pigeons. In the end, Sterling and Walter are fired from the agency because they broke so many laws, but are again hired because the world needs fresh minds like Walter's to fight enemies the unconventional way.